Welcome to Senior Living Visionaries, a podcast for senior living leaders who are looking to stay ahead of the curve in the industry. On this show, we feature leaders and innovators in senior living who are pushing the boundaries and creating new, effective services and solutions. And now, let's settle in as host Jennifer Drago connects us with today's guests.
Welcome to Senior Living Visionaries, where we showcase the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of senior living. I'm your host, Jennifer Drago, and I'm a strategy and governance consultant and CEO of Peak to Profit. And I'm so excited today to share with you two guests who are really working on an innovative concept to serve the middle market. And so we're really excited to learn more about this. First, I have Matt Thornhill, who leads Cozy Home Communities. And he was inspired to create the Cozy Home concept in 2020 after a 40-year career in advertising, marketing, and consulting. He founded the Boomer Project think tank, quickly establishing himself as the leading authority on marketing and understanding aging boomers. He's also written a book called The Boomer Consumer that was named the top 10 marketing book the year it was published. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the Cozy Home Communities in just a second. And he is partnering with a very prestigious organization in Pennsylvania, Presbyterian Senior Care Network. And Jim Pieffer is here, and he is the CEO of Presbyterian Senior Care Network and has been with that organization for 39 years. So Jim, let's start with you. Tell us about anything more that you'd like to about your history, what brought you to this point in your career, and about Presbyterian, if you would.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. Yes, as you said, I'm Jim Pieffer, CEO of Presbyterian Senior Care for the past 3 years. I've actually been with the organization, started as a graduate student out of the University of Pittsburgh and had many different positions there. When I started, we were a fairly small organization, about 5 communities, and today we're the largest provider of senior services in Western PA. We have 54 communities that serve about 7,000 seniors and persons with disabilities a year here in Western PA. We just celebrated our 96th anniversary as an organization. We're a nonprofit, faith-based organization and pride ourselves on innovation and collaboration. So, I was very excited to talk about this project today. Nationally, I think we're known probably most for dementia care. Having done some of the earliest dementia care as well as CCRC Without Walls program, also one of the first in the country to provide that service here. And we do the full spectrum from home and community-based services to personal care, assisted living, memory care, nursing care, and continuing care retirement communities. So very exciting to be a part of an organization that's forward-thinking and exciting to be partnered with Matt in this particular new venture.
Thanks so much, Jim, for that introduction to your organization. And Matt, why don't you tell us about Cozy Home Communities?
First off, hello, Jennifer. Thanks to be here. You said in the introduction we started in 2020. Prior to that, my background is not in real estate development or senior living or senior housing. I was a marketing guy, an advertising guy, and I studied consumer behavior. And I did a lot of work over the late years when I was running the Boomer Project of working with senior living and senior housing. And the Cozy Home concept is basically a culmination of a lot of trends that I saw happening in that sector. First off, the boomer consumer themselves was not really interested in the traditional product out there for senior living. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of the boomer consumers out there who are middle income, and we all know there's no product for them in the category. There's the high-end product, and then there's affordable tax-supported stuff, and not much in the middle. And the industry itself was kind of waking up to, well, we got to figure out this middle market product. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to do was to figure out, is there a way to build these homes differently, maybe take a different approach to how we build them? Is there a way to market them a little bit differently? Is there a way to arrange them on a parcel of land a little bit differently? Can we lean into some of the things that we see coming in terms of trends? Like, for example, I knew that telemedicine was coming. I didn't know that COVID would make it come in a 3-month period, but I knew that by 2025 or 2030, we'd be much more comfortable with telemedicine. I knew that older adults, boomers, once they got to to this age, or by 2025, I knew that they'd be comfortable with things being delivered to their home, from their groceries to their prescriptions to anything and everything, obviously now. And again, COVID accelerated that. So we basically put together the whole idea about Cozy Home around what was coming, what we were going to need in 2025 and 2030 and beyond, and to just take a complete blank slate approach to it. And that's what we did to come up with the concept.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll learn a little bit more about what the concept is in just a second. Jim, would you share with us, prior to working with Matt on this concept, what was your organization doing to serve the middle market, and how did that come about? And you mentioned your continuing care retirement community without walls, Life Care at Home, which is, I do think, is a middle market product. You and I share that we've both started one of those organizations, but what else?
It's a great question. We've actually been thinking about the middle market since the late 80s. We only have one really high-end retirement community, and then we have 32 affordable housing communities. And to reiterate Matt's point, there's just not a lot in the middle. And so, we work in many different counties around the greater Pittsburgh area and southwestern Pennsylvania. And a lot of our counties do not support high-end product. So one of the things we did, Jen, in the late 80s, early 90s, was looked at a concept called senior adult condominiums. And we built about 100 of those across from our Washington County campus just south of Pittsburgh. And that was a very affordable option for folks. And but it wasn't a great replicable model, because we risked sort of losing control of that. Those products, we were really the manager. We didn't have a lot of opportunity for services. Even though it's a great connection for us, it was something that we tried. It's been successful. But as we looked at other ways to serve the middle market, construction costs and financing options really weren't that available. So one of the things we did start was the CCRC Without Walls program back about 25 years ago. And that's attracted a portion of the middle market, people who really want to stay at home but still want the security of a life plan community. So we have about 400 members right now of our program, which is now called Envisage. And that's been successful, but to be honest, we probably have more high-end members than middle market, even though it's a lot of the pricing is geared that way. So one of our board members got excited about a concept called senior co-housing. And that's something that sort of surfaced mostly on the West Coast about 10 or 15 years ago. And I was excited about that because, what it normally takes to build an affordable community is big scale, right? You have to have 120 or 150 units. And that's difficult to place in a lot of our markets. And it's also not a very friendly community lifestyle. So when I heard Matt talk about the Cozy Homes concept, and look at this, it really seemed to me like it was a kind of a unique blending of the senior co-housing model together with what I thought was a very forward-thinking approach about having the residents have a lot of control of their services. So I love the idea and the concept of looking at a little different way to serve that middle market, as opposed to just building, these giant communities that are very capital intensive and very high risk.
Great. And Matt, so am I correct in understanding that Cozy Home actually started kind of during COVID in 2020? So you really weren't serving the middle market, but certainly it sounds like all of your marketing work, your research, your book was really focused on boomers in particular, but like you said, consumer behavior and understanding what those folks need.
Right. And my desire was actually to start Cozy Home to meet the middle market. It's funny, when I would explain the concept to friends at parties and such, oftentimes women in their 50s and 60s would say, "Oh my gosh, we love this idea. You're going to build a community where we all have our own house and we can live together. We want to do that. All of our sorority sisters, we're going to do that when we get to that age. Or we're going to buy up all these homes on a cul-de-sac and live together. Or we're going to take over a wing of an assisted living facility and live together because we want to go through the stage of life together." And I said, why don't somebody just build something for them? And then as I got to study the marketplace, it became real clear. In fact, in 2019, Nick released their first big study about the forgotten middle, which said that there's, an unmet need of, I don't know, 10, 12 million boomers by 2030 are going to need to live in some sort of senior supportive housing, but aren't going to be able to afford the high-end product and won't qualify for affordable. So it's an unmet need that's actually 3 times larger than the entire universe of senior supportive housing today.
Right. Yeah, that is the challenge for all of us in this industry for sure. So tell us how the two of you came together to start working on a project. It sounded like, Jim, you heard Matt speak about Cozy Home, and did that kind of start the discussion?
Yes, we were at a conference together in California, actually, and one of my favorite conferences because it has for-profit and nonprofit folks and specializes sort of in innovation. And so one of the presentations that I heard during that conference was Matt talk about the Cozy Homes idea. And so I approached him at dinner that night and just said, hey, I'm really fascinated by the concept that you talked about, and talked about how it was very similar to some of the senior co-housing things we had been researching. And as I mentioned before, we're a very collaborative organization, and I really like the idea of trying to partner with Matt to say, can you bring this to Southwestern Pennsylvania? And I already had a site in mind that I had been looking at as a possible co-housing opportunity. So I had kind of the land in an existing relationship, which we'll talk about. And Matt seemed to have an idea that really rang true to me from a market perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Matt, do you want to start telling us about the Slippery Rock opportunity, or maybe, well, why don't we start with what Cozy Home communities are first, and then we can go to Slippery Rock.
Sure. So like I said, I was trying to lean into a lot of trends. So there's 3 big distinctions that make a Cozy Home kind of a unique thing. One is the housing product itself, the housing unit. They are modular built, which means they're factory built in sections, delivered on site, and then put on a traditional foundation. They're just like a site-built home, a stick-built building, but it's built inside. So that means you have very little waste, you have no weather issues, you have the same carpenter team and electrician team and whatnot putting it all together. So it comes out not a shabby, house at all. It comes out, as they say in the industry, glued, screwed, and trued. It's square up and really nice. You deliver it on site, you put it on a foundation that's been built by the folks who are doing the property development. And you go from kind of an unfinished site to a finished site pretty quickly because the homes go up and are done almost immediately. The homes themselves are 1,200 square foot, one level with wider doors, and I wouldn't call it ADA compliant, but acknowledgement that we're going to have older adults living in there. So we've got wider doorways and things like that. 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,200 square foot. The concept is to put 8 to 12 of these in a circle with all of them facing a common area in the middle. And in the middle of the common area is a 1,500 square foot common house, we call it, where those residents can have access to meeting space and gathering space. There's a galley kitchen in there and a bathroom, and they can kind of configure it however they want. You put 4 of these colonies together, if you will, and we have a community of middle income boomers living together at this stage of life. The project that we're partnering up with Jim is in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Not everybody around the country knows about Slippery Rock, but they've got a great university there, public university, Slippery Rock University. And it's the Slippery Rock University Foundation that owns the land. It's adjacent to the university. In fact, it backs up to the student center at the university. They have overall about 30 acres. We're going to develop about 8 acres and build 46 homes. So a total of up to 92 residents will be in the community. So not 120, not 300, not 50, but almost 100 folks. And that's enough size and capacity there that enables us to then do the other parts of Cozy Home, which is we want to take, we think part of the future of senior living is what Jim figured out 25 years ago with his CCRC at home, which is senior living is really going to be delivered as a service. Well, the wealthiest among us can afford to stay in their current home and have that service delivered to them. But if we aggregate enough seniors into one location, I don't know, let's say 92 of them, then I can then talk to the service providers in the community at large and say, hey, what kind of services can you provide to these seniors that have aggregated here? So I don't have to have a yoga instructor on the payroll. We'll partner with one who's in the community and offer that. Visiting nurses can come and do 8 to 10 visits a day versus 5 visits with a 20-minute drive in between each one. Mm-hmm. So I can offer up visiting nurses at a much more cost-effective way. So what we're going to do is we're going to curate and find resources in the community at large and make them available to the residents who live in our community. Because of the way we're configured the homes, the way we're going to approach it from a marketing standpoint is really this is kind of like active adult living mm-hmm. with wraparound services. Maybe that's the best way to describe it because it's not really independent living. It's not really, anything else on the spectrum, and it's not just plain old active adult. So we're going to market it to say, look, if you want to go through the stage of life in community with others like you, come live here. And part of the agreement when you sign that lease is as long as you're able, you've got to give 10 hours a month back to the community mm-hmm. in community service. That may mean helping a neighbor with groceries. It might mean volunteering on the committee that looks after the property and grounds. All sorts of different opportunities will exist for folks. And as long as they're able, you've got to be willing to kind of give back. So it's an intentional community that's physically built to kind of foster that, but everyone has their own individual house.
Sure.
And when COVID hit, that made that a really smart idea.
Yeah, no, I love the concept. And can you tell me, are there any association fees that pay, like you even mentioned property maintenance, and I was thinking, do you have like a homeowners association kind of fee?
Well, yeah, there's going to be a community fee that everyone will pay. The community will be owned and operated by a joint venture between Jim's organization and the Slippery Rock University Foundation, who owns the land. Their whole idea was we want to develop the land to turn it into an opportunity to meet the needs in our community at large, maybe even some alumni or retiring professors, but also to generate a little bit of revenue to fund scholarships for students. So it's a joint venture between the two of them. It's one owner, if you will, and people will pay monthly rents to that owner, and they'll have an additional fee to cover kind of the cost of the lights and electricity and a very basic range of services that we'll provide.
Okay.
And then our organization, Jen, also is a property management company, and we actually, just coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, also have an affordable project in Slippery Rock. We've been there for about 20 years. And so we will be able to provide also some basic services from our property management company to the homeowners association, resident association as well, to kind of supplement their services, to handle billing and accounting issues and things along those lines. So we'll support that resident association. And our plan is also to have a resident member on the board of directors so that they're represented, in that process. That's a model that we like and we've embraced for years, is to have membership and input, from the residents. But it'll really be their community. That's one of the things I loved about Matt's concept is, they'll control activities, they'll say how much services they want, and together we'll help them find the best possible ways. And because of our connections with the Area Agency on Aging, with the hospital systems in that area, we do have some care communities that aren't too far away and relationships. We'll be able to also provide kind of a little bit of a virtual continuum for those residents. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was the most exciting to me was the co-location with the university. Because to Matt's point, we don't have to build a gymnasium. Slippery Rock has one. We don't have to build a food service. They'll be able to walk into the student union and go down the elevator. And so we're really working, I'm actually trying to talk the university into giving each of our residents a student ID, which I think is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
So that when they go into places and stores and areas, they don't have to explain every time, I'm connected to the university. And just having that lifelong learning potential. Slippery Rock's actually a very progressive state university in our area, and they're really welcoming and trying to become, more senior friendly. But what a great idea to have intergenerational lifelong learning and have the resources the university literally steps away. So, it's all about value added in the end. And I think that, the residents who potentially will live here will find great value in the location without having to spend a lot of extra money to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I love the idea of the university-based, I'm going to call it retirement community. I know it's not truly that the same thing, but I did a podcast episode about university-based retirement communities, and there's a senior living community in Towson, Maryland, which is in the Baltimore area, and they are partnering with Goucher College right next door. And the opportunities that are coming out of that, like you said, lifelong learning for seniors for sure, but from the college's perspective, hearing their presidents speak about what it means to their students and the opportunities that the students are looking forward to for mentorship, to learn from, the seniors, to actually potentially even innovate in the senior care arena, right? As they learn about the seniors and the senior needs, they might be able to have some innovation classes and things like that. So they're also planning, they do a lot of travel abroad for their students, and they're planning to offer those opportunities to the seniors. So I love, as soon as Matt explained to me that this is right next to the university, it sounded like many of those same opportunities are going to apply potentially.
Yeah, we're kind of finalizing that list with the
Sure.
university now, but they have a very strong health sciences graduate program. And one of the things we're in discussions with is there's 12, 11, 11, 12 homes in each of the 4 colonies. And we want one of those units in each of the 4 colonies to house 2 grad students.
Nice.
So we get some intergenerational living in the cozy home community, and they can be, physical therapy doctorates or occupational therapy or even social services. They've got all sorts of degree options, and we're working out with the foundation and with the university how to structure that. But there's also the opportunity for the university to use the common houses we have to bring in our residents, to have them do things, to do research with them, to do marketing to them, to do all sorts of different things across the university's wide range of things. And we even got the school bus system is planning to now create a bus stop right next to Cozy Home that will take our residents down into it's not a very far trip, down to where the grocery store is just part of the loop with the other students who take the Happy Bus, it's called, at Slippery Rock.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jim, you mentioned a seat for a resident on the board, and I just wanted to clarify because I love governance. That's one of the other topics I work on quite a lot. Will that be on the Presbyterian Senior Care Network board, or were you talking about a board that will govern that cozy home community?
Yeah, so the Cozy Homes development will be its own separate 501c3 organization.
Okay.
So we'll actually have a joint board of directors, Jen, with Slippery Rock Foundation, University Foundation. So they'll have representatives on the board. We'll have representatives, and then we'll have a representative from the Resident Association, which either they can select on their own, or people can volunteer. That could be one of their volunteer organizations. Opportunities is to serve on the board of directors. So and I would also anticipate that the residents would have their own committee structures, which they can work on separately. But the governance board is a combination of our 2 sponsoring organizations.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. And so let's talk about some of the things that make this unique from a middle market senior community perspective, right? So we talked about the fact that It's located next to a university, which I know isn't completely unique, but I think it's a pretty big selling feature. Modular-built, which probably, I'm not sure if that actually brings construction costs down. It sounds like it brings quality up, but maybe you can share that with us. We talked about the services truly being unbundled so that people are paying for the services that they need, but because there's some bit of scale there, perhaps it's provided more economically or productively, if you will. But don't take my words. I want to hear your words. How would each of you describe the things that make this unique?
Yeah. Well, you did a pretty good job, Jennifer. I'm going to put you on the marketing department.
Awesome.
Yeah, the buildings themselves are pretty much cost the same than stick building. It is the quality, and it takes less time to do the whole project, so you save money in construction loan interest payments because you can just do it quicker. So that's an important part of it. And these are not like, trailer homes. They may come on a trailer, but they're wood traditional homes, and you would, if you saw it, you'd go, oh, yeah, well, that was just built here, wasn't it? The couple of other things about Cozy Home, we actually have developed a tool to help the neighbors, new residents, get to know one another. And it's essentially borrowing some academic research on what it takes to develop friendships. And it just basically takes, time to get to know somebody. And that just takes conversations. Well, what if you could kind of speed up the conversations part of it by having each individual resident reveal stuff about them through a profile we have them fill out that they share, and they can fill out as much or as little of it as they feel comfortable with, but they share it with their neighbors. So almost immediately we know that, oh my gosh, Jim is a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan and also a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That's not surprising. He lives in Pittsburgh, but don't have to ask him that. He's already told me that. So we can have conversations about the new quarterback at Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, who actually is from Richmond, Virginia, where I live. So all of a sudden we've got a connection point that we wouldn't have had. We would have eventually gotten there, but we got it within 10 minutes of meeting each other because we read each other's profile. And it just facilitates people getting to know one another. And if you want to live together in a community, you want to know your neighbors and you want them to know you. So we're intentionally facilitating that. The three roles that initially Cozy Home is going to play as we come online with this community, ultimately we want the residents to do. One is this role I already talked about, the cultivator, the one who finds the external resources and brings them in based on what the needs are of the residents who live in the community. So that's one role. Second role is we call it the first one is curator. Did I say curator? I may have said cultivator. I can't. Yeah, I meant curator. First one's the curator who curates the resources. The second is the cultivator, who's the people person who wants to facilitate everyone getting to know one another. So that's the second role. And the third is the caretaker, who looks at the physical property and says, what do we need to be looking out for? And, we all have different gifts and different abilities, and a group of 92 older adults, we're going to have lots of resources available that we want to tap into. And by having people serve in this kind of citizenship role, it's almost, in fact, it's more like a member role. You're all members of this community. And as a member of the community, you've got roles and responsibilities. You got to give 10 hours back to the community. You've got to maybe be on a team that does the caretaking or on a team that's doing the cultivating. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're the one who comes up with the Friday after the Wednesday, evening activities that we all do together. So it's a different type of community where we're really trying to empower people to give them purpose so they can be as productive and useful at this stage of life as possible, and tap into those resources that we are blessed to have by being right next to the university.
Yeah, I love it. And Jim, what do you think makes this unique?
Yeah, so many things Matt already talked about, but also I think one of the things that the dimensions that we add as an experienced senior care provider is we can also help support some of the resident activities and issues. So we plan, for example, to have a couple of hours every week of a service coordinator on the site who can answer specific questions for the residents, about insurances or, health issues or, who will also serve as kind of an individual navigator which is very difficult, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things out there for seniors, but, how do you access them? How do you apply for them? And we found in our affordable communities, those service coordinators are so valuable in helping to connect with things people are entitled to or investigating, and also saves them time, right? Because you Google something, you get 8,000 options. I think sometimes it makes it worse, right? And so, having that as a part of it, having us as an experienced property manager to help them with that as well. And then also having the connections to the hospital systems and the care systems around them, right? Nobody ever wants to use those services, right? I've never had in 39 years, I've never had anyone move into an apartment and say, I can't wait to get to the nursing home, right? But if they need it for 3 weeks after hip surgery, right? Isn't it great to know that they have someone who can help them navigate through that, or help them with that referral, help them with their follow-up afterwards, and then connect them back to those volunteer opportunities in the community. So I think having an experienced senior service provider together with the Cozy Homes concept, co-located with the university, to me, that's three really critical ways that seniors can help, because, what we found is a lot of our folks don't have close family anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have family, but, my daughter's in Virginia, my son's in California. They love me. They want to help me. That's not really realistic, right? And I think having the kind of connections to people that Matt talks about, I think is so important too, because in the end, I think one thing that we learned from COVID was isolation is so deadly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a woman tell me when she moved in one of our affordable communities recently, she said, home can be a palace or a prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so profound to me, like that'll stick with me the rest of my career. My own home is great if everything else is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I've lost my social support, if I can't really afford to take care of it, if it doesn't make sense for me anymore, is my home really the right place for me? And this just creates, one of the things we pride ourselves as an organization is to create options. And that's what was so intriguing to me when I talked to Matt. This is an option that not only we don't have in our system, but really Western Pennsylvania doesn't have either. So I think a really neat collaboration that, hopefully we'll find some other sites for in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I love this. I love this idea from so many perspectives. And you're exactly right, Jim. As you two have been talking and describing this project, I was thinking, I'm a huge proponent of continuing care at home, as we've talked about already. But that is the one big piece, right? Is we can create activities for these people, but we still have to get them there because, they're living out in community, dispersed in their own homes. And the beauty of having this all together and having this connected social network right in your neighborhood is amazing. So I think there's so many benefits from this, and I love also that because you're partnered with the university, I hope they start researching the benefits of this model from day one so that it proliferates throughout the senior living world. Tell me, for those that are listening, and this podcast is really designed for senior living executives to hear from about innovative approaches just like this. So I bet there's some folks who are listening right now who are saying, wow, could we make this work in our local area? What things do you think are maybe necessary, but maybe just nice to have that would make communities like this thrive? So if you are talking to a senior living executive who's listening right now, who might be interested, what things would you say? Hey, think about A, B, C, D.
I'll start, and Jim, obviously, with his expertise, can take it from there. But I will tell you from the very beginning, as I talked to senior living operators like Jim's organization, a lot of them all said, "We got land, come build it here." So available land that is, less expensive or not expensive at all. We are paying a land lease for Slippery Rock University, but it's not expensive. I guess it's probably market price, but the land cost is not in the way here. Would this work in downtown Boston? No. Land costs are California and places where land costs are through the roof. It wouldn't be middle market, or the definition of middle market would be quite different. So that's an important factor. But related to that is zoning issues. I mean, the way you would describe this, quite honestly, is multifamily single detached homes. Well, there's no such thing. It's single family detached, or it's multifamily, which is a big building with multiple things. But this is one owner who's got 46 units on it. So the zoning laws in most communities around the country, you got to kind of deal with that. We were able to deal with it in Slippery Rock. The township was very interested in this, and we were able to kind of get the zoning that allowed us to build them as close together as we wanted to. There are movements where the co-housing folks are and others who have been doing smaller cottage communities. There's of the 9,000 municipalities in America, counties and such, there are probably 30 or 40 that have redone their zoning so that you can build these kinds of pocket neighborhoods or cottage communities where they're individual homes close together. Some are great, like Western Washington State is where a lot of this started. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania has actually put in place zoning that allows it, the same zoning that allows you to build accessory dwelling units and such, where you can have multiple separate units on a property. Which, if you look at our demographics, we're going to need that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the demographic thing that I leaned into was that 40% of boomers don't have a spouse or partner today.
Wow.
They're either divorced, never married, widowed, whatever it is. 20 years ago, the last generation at this stage of life, it was only 25%. But that was also a much smaller generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about 6 or 7 million people then. It's like 27 million people today who don't have a spouse or partner. So that's one less income today, one less Social Security check in the future, and no caregiver at home if they start to deteriorate. So we got to come together.
Yeah.
We can't all live in the Golden Girls house, but we're going to need to find a way to live together in community. And that's what we're trying to build, is to help do that.
Hey, Matt, as you were given those statistics, I bet you know this one as well. I know that more and more couples are childless by choice in the older generation or in the younger generations. What's the statistic for the boomers?
I don't know how many had babies. It was fewer. But the other thing is that fewer of them got married in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
The last generation was like 95% got married. Boomers, it was 87% got married.
Mm-hmm.
Again, 40% are not married today for one reason or another. But they also only had on average 2 kids. And boomers are the generation where our parents had 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you had family caregiving built in.
Right.
That boomers aren't going to have.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
That's a big part of the problem.
Yeah. And Jim, what do you think if you were advising another senior living CEO who wanted to evaluate this concept, what would you tell them to be looking for or looking at?
Yeah, I agree with what Matt was saying. I mean, from my perspective, the question really comes down to is what's your mission as an organization, right? So, do you want to try to diversify your portfolio? Because, so many people, I'm very involved in Leading Age National, Leading Age Pennsylvania. And, many of our organizations are very traditional CCRC, continuing care, retirement communities. And, what we're starting to see is people realize that model needs to evolve, right? And what we know is that people are going to want more unbundled and they're going to want more options in the future. So, if you're an organization, I think that's forward thinking, you're thinking about how to evolve, and people are evolving their contracts, Jen, as you know, and other things. We used to have 2 contracts, now we have 10, and those kind of things are helpful too. But this, I think, takes that model to a new level, and it also provides another option that is unique. And so if you do have, I can see, as Matt just mentioned, I could see this being on an existing campus of a CCRC as an alternative model. I could see this being, something that is on an adjacent property that's complementary to an existing service provider. So I would say to people, this may not, this isn't a $20 million idea. It's not going to change your balance sheet, so dramatically. But it's a way to serve a population that is really forward thinking and is going to be bigger and more significant in the future as that number of people who can afford those type A type contracts is going to continue to shrink, right?
Mhm.
So I think if you're forward thinking, and I agree with Matt, if you're an urban provider, if you're in, if you're in certain areas of Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or other areas, you're not going to have the property to do this. But the other beauty of this, I think, is that it can be in smaller communities. It doesn't have to be, in an area that's highly populated. It could serve a more rural population. It could serve a population niche.
Mhm.
There could be a group of people that want to live together. We're doing some work right now with the LGBTQ community in Western PA. I've thought about, is there an opportunity to do a specialty community maybe somewhere
Mhm.
in the future? Is there an affinity group that might be interested in doing something like this? I think there's really cool opportunities, and I think there's also really interesting opportunities with universities, beyond Slippery Rock and others. I think the idea of intergenerational is just so powerful, and you hear a lot about that conceptually. So I would say if you're willing to, go out there and be a little bit more progressive and forward thinking, this is something that's worth considering.
You've kind of just answered my last question, so I'm going to ask it of Matt, and then Jim, I'll see if you have anything else to add. But what advice do you have for senior living organizations who might be interested in serving the middle market, interested in this type of opportunity?
Well, I just want to piggyback a little bit on what Jim was saying. It's been interesting since we're not quite fully public about what we're doing in Slippery Rock, but enough people know about it in the region that we've now had inquiries from other municipalities. So not from operators, but from municipalities there who have said, wait a second, we don't have any middle market solution for seniors in our community. We got people that are moving out of our county to the adjacent county where they've got product that people might want. We need product here, and we've got land. Can you partner with somebody and let's see what we can do? So that kind of collaboration that we've ended up doing with Slippery Rock University Foundation, the landowner, we're now exploring other opportunities with other counties and municipalities around southwest Pennsylvania about, okay, could we do this here? And it's been driven by the municipalities, which actually accelerates the zoning approvals.
Right.
If they want to do it, they're going to let us do it, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So anyway, I think that the approach that Jim has taken in finding partnerships to bring this solution is what others ought to be trying to do. It's like, okay, we don't have to do it all ourselves. Let's find other people that have got particular approaches or expertise we can tap into, or landowners, whether it's faith-based organizations or municipalities, or whomever. Let's find a place where we can do this.
Yeah, I love it.
I gave a talk recently at a church in a small community in Culpeper, Virginia, and the pastor loved it so much at the end, he said, look, we need to do this here. The first one of you guys who wants to donate 10 acres to it, let me know. So he was looking for free land from his churchgoer, his church member. But it's out there.
Right.
You'd be surprised.
Right. I love also, thank you so much for bringing up the zoning issue, because I think we would, some people would overlook that, right? And it is a unique zoning classification. So working with the municipalities early, whether as a partner and, somebody who's very interested and supportive of the project, or just going to help you provide the right zoning, is so important. Jim, what else would you like to add?
Yeah, the only other thing I would just say to piggyback on what Matt said there, I think the idea of being willing to be collaborative and partner is not always natural for, us as nonprofits or even just organizations in general. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been successful in growing is we don't always have to be 100% owner or, be the only one at the table. And I think the idea of trying to reach out and partner to move things along faster and also to have people dedicated to it. I don't have a huge development team, so having Matt and Gary and his team, huge help to me and our organization, in this process. And also thinking about creative financing down the line. The other thing that Matt and his team have brought to us are some really good thoughts about how we can do this on an interim financing basis and then look at longer term options. And the creativity to make these affordable, not just in the early stages, but down the line is really important as well, right? So how do we secure, financing? How do we keep the other key to this that I really love is that, and this is true, we only have one other really true middle market product that we just developed recently. And one of the keys really, Jen, is keeping the staffing and direct cost of these down. And that's, again, the beauty of Cozy Homes. We're not going to have a ton of employees. We're going to hardly have any employees, actually. We're going to have a few part-time employees working on this project. And that's really where your costs start to creep, right? And if the residents want more service, we tell them how much they need to pay for it, and they decide whether they want it or don't want it and how long they want to keep it. And intellectually, I love that part of it as well. But if we truly want to be focused on the middle market, it's going to take some creativity and some partnerships and looking at ways that we can keep operating costs reasonable. Because affordability is going to be a key issue in the next 25 years.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for your thoughts. So for our listeners who would like to connect with either one of you and learn more about, anything that you've spoken about, can you tell us how we should best get a hold of you? So Jim, let's start with you and then we'll go to Matt.
Yeah, I'd be happy for you to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you could also email me directly at jpieffer, Pieffer, at srcare.org. And I would be happy to respond to you.
Thank you so much. And Matt?
And I'm easy to find. You can find me on LinkedIn at Matt Thornhill or cozyhomecommunity.com. I'm Matt at cozyhomecommunity.com. There's information on the website. And we'll make available to your folks who visit your website a PDF of what the proper project looks like, the renderings of such for Slippery Rock. So you can put a picture to the 8,000 words we've already shared.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll make sure your contact information is linked as well as that PDF that you just mentioned, Matt. I want to thank you both for this really exciting talk today. I'm so excited to see this project come to fruition, and I hope there's many more like it. So thank you for being the leaders and being out in the forefront of serving the middle market with this innovative opportunity. Thank you to both of you today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
You bet. I'm Jennifer Drago, and you've been listening to Senior Living Visionaries podcast, where we explore the cutting-edge ideas and breakthroughs like you heard today that are shaping the future of senior living. Please subscribe to be notified each time a new episode drops at seniorlivingvisionaries.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Senior Living Visionaries podcast and radio show, where we showcase the leaders and innovators in the industry who are pushing the boundaries and setting the stage for the future in senior living and services. Join us next time as we share the bold ideas and breakthroughs of the industry's most forward-thinking leaders here on Senior Living Visionaries.